Yay! Sequel Decay!
Uh,
Oh. It's a nickel. Would you like a nickel? Speaking of Nickelback, Chad Kroeger did a song.
Fucking nickel.
Hello and
I'm
welcome.
so ready.
God damn it.
I'm ready to step on your intro. Owned!
Hello and welcome to another episode of Sequel Decay, where we struggle to get through the day one franchise at a time. I'm Chris, and with me is Stefan.
Hello.
Okay, so this week we are talking about Spider-Man again.
Mm-hmm.
God, I love Spider-Man.
I'm so sick of Spider-Man.
I'm so high.
I came into this with Spider-Man as my favorite fictional character of all time, and I come out of it never wanting to see his stupid fucking face again.
Yeah, that's completely fair. This week we're going to be talking about the Sam Raimi movies.
Yep. Unfortunately, Brandon Pollock couldn't be with us today, but we
Yeah.
assure you it's for good reasons. Which is too bad because there's a lot to talk about with these movies.
Yeah, no, and I know Brandon really likes them.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
As do we.
To
Well,
an extent.
to an extent.
To an extent. God, isn't Spider-Man 3 your favorite movie of all time?
Chris, I would rather fucking die than watch that again.
Great, so we're going to start now. You ready, Stefan?
I'm very ready.
Okay. So, this week we'll be covering Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, and Spider-Man 3.
Mm-hmm.
The OG Spider-Man, if you will.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there were some. I think they were like made for TV live action movies. I think in the 70s, but they weren't theatrically released, and nobody gives a shit about them. So like,
Yeah, who fucking cares?
yeah, I think there was one where like Spider-Man fought a wizard.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah,
Jesus.
it's stupid, and we're not talking about it ever.
Well, that's a shame.
It's not.
Stefan, why don't you tell us a little bit about the director of these movies?
So, the director of these movies is Mr. Sam Raimi,
Yes.
who we previously discussed on our much underappreciated Evil Dead episode.
Please go listen to our Evil Dead episode.
Please.
Also, we'd really appreciate it if you listened to our other Spider-Man episodes.
Please.
Jesus Christ. Really, guys? Like 6 views for the Spider-Verse one?
Yeah, wow. You're really letting us down here. It's not like
Cunts.
it's not like you guys don't owe us or anything. You think we're appreciative that you actually tune in and listen to this drivel? Go fuck yourselves.
Okay, so we are going to talk about these 3 movies now, because if we don't start talking about them now, I might have to fucking kill myself.
That's yeah, okay.
So, I will start by describing Spider-Man 1.
Yay! It's the first one.
Yeah! So, Spider-Man came out in 2002.
Yep.
It's obviously based on the DC Comics character of the same name.
Mm-hmm.
Directed by Steven Spielberg from a screenplay by Tobey Maguire. And it stars Sam Raimi as the titular character, along with Willem Dafoe, that girl from Virgin Suicides,
Also true.
Tommy Wiseau,
Yep.
and God.
All very true.
Yes. And it's basically the Spider-Man origin story along with him fighting the Green Goblin.
Yep. It's very simple, and boy does it mostly work.
Yes! Stefan, I'm assuming you really enjoy this movie, or at least mildly do?
So I have opinions on the Sam Raimi movies.
I do too! I think I like these movies more than you do.
Yes, you definitely like them more than me. And I do like these movies. I liked them more when I was a small child.
Yeah.
Every time I rewatch the first movie specifically, we'll get to the others later, I like it a little less.
Okay, whereas I think I like Spider-Man 2 more and more, and I like Spider-Man 1 about the same, and then Spider-Man 3 feels less and less every time.
Yeah, Spider-Man 1, I like less and less every time. Spider-Man 2, I'm about plateaued in my like for it.
Okay.
And Spider-Man 3, I viscerally dislike.
Good. So we got our opinions across. Cool.
I think this movie, Spider-Man 1 in particular, is a really compelling origin story. It's one of my favorite origin story retellings of Spider-Man. And then the second half is kind of boring and bad. And it really lets the rest of the movie down because it gets bogged down in a relationship that I just don't care about.
That's fair. Do we want to talk about some good things about the trilogy first before we really dive into the first one?
Yeah, sure.
So I'll start with the score.
Yes.
For all three movies by Oingo Boingo lead singer Danny Elfman.
I keep forgetting this case. I don't listen to Oingo Boingo.
I really like Oingo Boingo.
I think his, aside from the 60s theme, which, whatever variation, I will pretty much always love, especially the Ramones version, which I forgot that they did the last time.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, his, theme that always plays during the always incredible credits during these movies.
Yes!
That's my favorite Spider-Man theme, besides, obviously, the 60s one.
Yes. I was gonna say, I think the score in Spider-Man 3 is my favorite. Like,
I mean, it's got a, like, the Sandman theme is really good.
Sandman theme is
so
great.
So is the Venom theme.
Yes.
Too
bad the movie sucks.
The movie is god-awful. It's terrible. It's irredeemable trash. But the score is very good.
Yes. I guess we should talk about Tobey Maguire as well. I think he's a good Peter Parker. I think he has, like, this really goofy earnestness about him that Sam Raimi really takes advantage of. And it kind of makes Peter work in at least the first two. I don't think he's that great as Spider-Man, though. He is terrible overall in both in Spider-Man 3.
I am not very high on Tobey Maguire.
I don't like him as an actor at all. I just really like him in the first two.
Every time somebody mentions that Tobey Maguire is their favorite Spider-Man, especially over, like, Tom Holland, I can't really help myself from saying, like, really?
Are you kidding me? What's his nuts from New Girl is my favorite Spider-Man. Spider-Dad.
Oh, yeah!
Yeah.
He's great. But...
Or Chris Pine. Chris Pine's Spider-Man.
I mean, those are good. Those are good Spider-Man. I was thinking more live action, though.
Oh, well, eat my ass. Spider-Man No More is the only Spider-Man.
I can't really argue with any of this.
No.
Because you're just so correct. Your big, impressive brain is winning me over.
My galaxy brain.
So I think Tobey's okay as Peter. He'll hover between very good as Peter to just fucking god-awful as Peter in Spider-Man 3. And then he's just generally bad as Spider-Man. It isn't really helped by the fact that because the technology wasn't there, like, they couldn't really do what they do now with Spider-Man, where they have his, like, the lenses on his mask, like, expand with his emotions.
Yeah.
I think that was a really good idea, and they used that to its fullest potential in the new movies.
Yeah.
But here they just didn't really have the technology. Even with that, like, the ADR inflections for Spider-Man are just so, like, they just can't draw any emotion out. No. And he's not that funny, which is kind of a must for Spider-Man.
That's kind of the issue, is that he's not that funny.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, though, that I think that the suit design, like, the lenses aside, I think the suit design's my favorite out of all these movies.
I really like the Amazing Spider-Man 2 costume.
Okay.
I think that's probably my favorite live-action one.
Okay.
I mean, I don't like much else from that movie, but I think they nailed the suit design.
Yeah.
I like this fine. I like these costumes. I just, the Amazing Spider-Man 2 one is the one that's come closest to capturing my imagining of the comic.
God, too bad the movie sucks.
The movie is trash, and we'll talk about that next week.
Yes, I look forward to it.
Yeah.
And, of course, going back to Evil Dead, there's a lot of moments throughout the trilogy that harken back to Sam's horror roots, especially, like, body horror.
Yes.
Because we can talk about the villain, origin scenes, because that's, like, the biggest example of that, or, like, the hospital scene in Spider-Man 2.
Mm-hmm. I like the body horror element, too, because it really kind of harkens back to the root of the character.
Oh, for sure.
Which is when Stan Lee was conceiving of it, aside from the coming-of-age angle, he was inspired by a lot of, like, weird sci-fi.
Yeah.
And because if you think of it, like, as a concept, like, if you remove Peter Parker from the equation, think of a man whose main defining trait as a superhero is that he can crawl on all fours up a wall.
Yeah.
That sounds unsettling.
Oh, for sure.
Spider-Man is not really unsettling, but they do kind of touch in this on the weird sci-fi origins.
Oh, especially with, like, the natural webs and stuff, which
I know
it's not
fucking
really,
weird.
Which I know isn't really, like, faithful to the comics or anything, but I still think it's a really nifty touch, and I think they take advantage of it really well.
I think it's mostly gross. I don't really have an opinion on it otherwise.
I think they use it really well thematically in Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, I guess. Fun fact, though. When in the comics, when the first movie came out, they actually got rid of Spider-Man's web shooters and made it natural webbing so it could fit up with the movie. And it was also very gross, and I hated it.
Okay, like, I don't like them tampering with the comics. Like, I don't mind them doing it for the movie so much, because I don't expect everything to be the exact fucking same.
No.
But don't tamper with the comics because the movie did it.
I think that's good. That's just a kind of a trend that happens with any movie, where it's like, comic book companies seem to fall under the impression that movies actually help move comic books and comic book sales, which they absolutely don't. But in the vain hope that they do, they seem to try to make the comics fit the movies as much as possible.
I mean, if it weren't for, like, movies like this, I wouldn't have gotten into comics as much. Also, Alan Moore.
Mm-hmm. That's true, but in general, comic books are a declining medium, and trying to match it up with the comics, with the movies, isn't really helping anything.
No.
It's just kind of a transparent cash grab.
Mm-hmm,
but
for sure.
Anyway, keep going.
I guess going back to the score, which we all love.
Mm-hmm.
You ever noticed how bad the fucking soundtrack is in all these movies? Like,
it's not great.
Like, the soundtrack for the first one is Nickelback, Sum 41, and Macy Gray.
You take Sum 41's name out of your fucking mouth, you piece of shit. But yeah, Nickelback sucks ass.
And, like, all the songs are bad. Do not try to tell me that Sum 41 song in Spider-Man is good.
No, it's their worst song.
It is so bad.
It's worse than anything off of their, what's that one really bad album they did?
God.
Is it Underclass Hero?
Yeah, God, that one's
awful
terrible.
Album. This song is somehow worse than any of the songs in that album.
I guess, should we just get the J.K. Simmons thing out of the way?
Ah!
Should we just talk about how much we love J.K. Simmons so we don't have to bring it up in the rest of the
best casting choice in this entire fucking trilogy.
Oh my god.
Oh
I'd say the best casting choice throughout, like, all of them.
Absolutely. J.K. Simmons scenes are my favorite scenes in these movies, like, bar none.
Yeah.
Like, nothing comes close to touching them. He just captures that, like, obtuse energy of the comic character.
Oh, yeah.
Just this absolute stubbornness. I think my favorite line of his is, when he's trying to smear Spider-Man, and Peter's like, Mr. Jameson, that's slander. I resent that! Slander is spoken, and printed libel.
Yeah, but I mean, like, as much as I love J.K. Simmons in these movies, and I do think that he is often a highlight, and quite possibly MVP, he's also in fierce competition with those Bruce Campbell cameos.
Yeah, I like J.K. Simmons more, but the Bruce Campbell cameos are definitely the best. They just keep getting better, too, honestly. In the first one, he, like, isn't... I mean, he's whatever. He gives Spider-Man his name, and that's kind of funny.
That was great.
It was fun. And then the second one, he That's true.
In Spider-Man 2.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Stopped him in his tracks.
Mm-hmm.
The power of the ordinary New Yorker. That's the theme of that movie. Just kidding. These movies suck. And then in the third one, he's a French maitre d' who I bet you dollars to donuts is definitely not French.
My favorite part is when he says, I am French.
Like 3 times?
Like 3 times. It's like that scene in The Benchwarmers where this, like, obviously 35-year-old man is asked to show off his birth certificate, and the birth certificate is literally a picture of his face with the words, I am 12 written in crayon and a $20 bill.
That's funny, but that movie is so fucking racist.
Oh, no. That movie is abysmal.
Yeah.
That's the only scene I remember from The Benchwarmers besides, John Lovett showing up and ruining it all.
Oh, yeah, that was awful. Man, I actually really liked that movie when I was a kid. Because it had baseball in it. That was my main criteria. But Jesus Christ, is that fucking awful. Speaking of baseball, and I touched on this a bit in the Homecoming episode, but I rewatched it, and I'm completely right. There's a picture of Uncle Ben in a Yankees cap. Fucking bullshit. The Parkers are Mets fans through and through. Sam Raimi, you incompetent fucking hack.
Shut the fuck up.
Get it right, you piece of shit. You incompetent fucking clown.
Oh, for the love of God.
Don't you fucking sass me, you know I'm right.
I will sass you.
As a great man once said, history will vindicate me on the nature of Peter's sports team allegiances.
I also kind of want to say just straight out, since we're talking about performances and stuff, especially with like J.K. Simmons, Tobey Maguire, Bruce Campbell, our Lord and Savior.
Uh-huh.
I think that James Franco is the weakest link in this trilogy.
Of the actors?
Of the actors, yeah, like the main 3. I would say that James Franco's the worst. Like, he's the most inconsistent, at least.
He's definitely the most inconsistent, because I think he has his moments where he's, like, pretty good. It's mostly...
They're all in Spider-Man 2.
It's mostly, which, they really build up to to maybe doing some interesting stuff with Harry.
But they don't.
But they don't.
He's so underwritten.
He's so underwritten, and it sucks because in the comics, like, Peter and Harry's relationship is one of the most tragic elements of that entire story.
Yes.
And it looks like they're building up to that because they have, like, Harry's addiction problems and his conflicted nature about Peter
and his father
and his father and Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I think it really does a disservice that they inserted him into a love triangle with Peter and Mary Jane.
Yeah, kind of.
I can talk a bit about my problems with the relationship stuff later.
Okay.
But I think that the relationship stuff is the weakest part of the trilogy. And I think that Harry being involved in that really weakens the trilogy as a whole.
Yeah, a little bit. And the last thing I wanted to bring up before we go into Spider-Man 1 specifically are the action scenes in at least the first two.
They're fun.
I really like them. I like how fluid and kinetic they are, and I also like how slapsticky they are. Like, I guess I'll go into it now, but the climax and the wrestling ring scene in the first one basically remind me of the pit scene in Army of Darkness.
Yeah?
Yeah, like, they're goofy as fuck. People are just getting thrown around, and, like, there's always, like, really wacky things happening. And, like, obviously that's inspired by Sam Raimi's love of the Three Stooges.
Yeah.
And, like, it really shows here.
Fun fact, I don't think this is in the actual movie, but Doc Ock's tentacles are actually named Lenny, Curly, and Moe.
Of course they are.
I don't know what the fourth one is named.
It's named Bruce.
I'm gonna think about that for a really long time now. Like, what could it...
I guess other fun facts, speaking of Sam Raimi connections, the car that Uncle Ben drives is the Delta 88 from Evil Dead.
Yep. That's 100%
the classic.
Correct.
Because, you know, like we said in the Evil Dead episode, Sam Raimi will not get rid of that fucking car.
Do you think he has gotten rid of it by this point?
I hope not.
What was his last movie? Was that
Oz the Great and Powerful? And apparently, according to that Q&A I talked about in the Evil Dead episode with Bruce Campbell, apparently it's in there somewhere and it was stripped to its parts.
Really?
Yeah.
Did they put
Sam
it back
Raimi's
together?
A fucking lunatic. Probably.
Huh.
He has Disney money. Of course he probably took it apart and put it back together. And I'm sure money, Disney was like, you know what, fine, we'll foot the bill.
Yeah, I'm sure Disney was like, you know, this is a really hard decision for us, as they, like, are shoveling, like, dump trucks filled with billions of dollars each into, like, some occult cavern where they're committing a fucking blood ritual.
Oh, that's how they got the new Lion King green light.
I was actually building up to that joke, and I'm glad you took it home. Whee! Boy, that looks awful.
Good.
Let's
jump right into the first one.
Let's go balls deep into it.
Now, obviously, the first thing we need to talk about with casting is that these actors are way too fucking old for the most part.
Yeah.
I did my research, and around the time of filming, I estimated that Toby was about 25.
Yep.
James Franco was 23.
Yep.
And Kirsten Dunst was the only age-appropriate one of the three at 19.
Yeah. Which is, I would have guessed it was James Franco, because he kind of does look like a fucking skinny teenager looking.
I think that's honestly how they got away with it. Like, Toby's the only one that feels out of place.
Yeah.
And I will say that about James Franco. Like, he does feel age-appropriate, even though technically no.
Yeah.
But
all I ask is that they look like it.
Exactly, yeah.
I don't really care about their actual age.
Yeah, but Toby looks like he's fucking 40.
What about Joe Manganiello as Flash? Like, does he look age-appropriate?
Or as I like to call him, that boy who did a striptease dance with Aquafina water and Cheetos in a convenience store in Magic Mike XXL.
God, that was hot. But
that'll be an episode.
Yeah, Joe Manganiello was like, I don't know what his actual age is. For all I know, he's 18, but he looks about 30.
Do you want me to look up how old he was?
Yeah, do it.
All right, great. Let's do that. So yeah, he was about 25-ish, I think, as well.
Which I could believe, but he does not look like a high schooler.
No, he absolutely does not. Like, I believe the kid from Grand Budapest Hotel as Flash over...
Because he looks like 14.
Yeah.
He still looks like 14.
I know, which is fucking crazy. He hasn't aged since that fucking movie came out.
God bless him.
He's so good.
And the vampire blood sustaining him.
Yes, just like the same vampire blood that's sustaining Paul Rudd.
Hell yeah.
Fuck yeah. The other thing I kind of noticed watching these movies is the shitload of product placement. Like, especially in the first one.
In the first one,
it's really bad in the first one.
Apparent. Like, Norman and Harry are the fucking richest people in New York, and they can't afford anything more than Maker's Mark whiskey. Fuck off.
At least have some Suntory in there, for fuck's sake.
Have some self-respect, for fuck's sake. Fuck Suntory. Get some fucking self-esteem.
No, but, like, every time there was, like, a fucking... any sort of, like, inkling of product placement, I kept thinking about that David Lynch thing, where he was asked about product placement for, like, 30 seconds.
What are you not thinking about a David Lynch thing, though?
No, but, like, he's asked, like, for the viewers at home who don't know, someone asked David Lynch in a very extended 30-second way. Like, the clip's, like, 30 seconds long.
Yeah.
Or, sorry, 32 seconds long. And the first 30 seconds are devoted to the guy asking the question, because he takes a sweet-ass time with it. And then the last 2 seconds are David Lynch going, bullshit. Total fucking bullshit. And that's how I felt seeing all this product placement, being like, bullshit. Total fucking bullshit.
You know what actually is total fucking bullshit, though?
What?
The love triangle.
Yes.
It's really bad, folks.
Yes.
It's really... Like, Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst, bless both their hearts. I think Kirsten Dunst is actually a really good actor.
She's wonderful. Watch any Sofia Coppola movie to find out about that.
Yeah, and they just do not have any chemistry.
No, fuck no.
In any movie, but it's pretty apparent in the first one because there's those long, drawn-out backyard scenes.
Yeah.
Which kind of stop the movie dead.
Yeah, kind of, actually, when you kind of think about it.
And they throw in this love triangle with Harry that literally serves no purpose except to make Peter look really good and Harry look really bad, and I guess show that Mary Jane has bad taste in men.
Yeah.
I guess, but which...
Would Harry Osborn have hit her? No.
Oh my fucking god. But
oh shit, I'm going too fast. Sorry.
We'll get to that, don't worry. And it's bad, but it wouldn't be so bad if they didn't repeat it in both of the next two movies.
Yeah.
Which I guess we'll get to that, so we'll set that aside for now.
You ever noticed how in the first movie they keep telling us that Peter Parker is this like brilliant science whiz, but you never actually see him applying that knowledge either verbally or in any stretch?
I like that.
Like at no fucking point. They don't like they kind of show it in Spider-Man 2 and then they show it a bit in Spider-Man 3.
I like I'll give the Amazing Spider-Man movies this. They did dedicate some time to showing Peter, like, actually inventing shit.
Yeah!
They showed him inventing the web shooters.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, it really bothers me that it comes out on a risk. Not just from an aesthetic level, where I just think it's icky, but also that I think in the comics, making the web shooters is supposed to be, like, a defining moment of just how, like, smart he is and how much he intuitively understands physics and chemistry.
Yeah.
Part of the joy of Spider-Man, especially when it comes to like combat situations or rescuing people, is seeing him figure things out.
Yeah, him using his wits.
I've never really gotten that sense with these movies. They're mostly won by punching things. I can only think of a couple times where he's actually used like a knowledge of physics or whatever to actually help him win a fight. And that was one during the train sequence in Spider-Man 2.
Yep.
And another time it was when in Spider-Man 3 when he discovers that Sonics make the symbiote freak out.
Yeah.
But other than that, you don't really get a sense of how smart Peter is.
Not really, no. It's kind of sad. Like, a lot of the science stuff is either him answering a question in Dr. Connor's class or Dr. Connors discovering something about the symbiote.
Exactly.
Which, I mean, we'll get to Dr. Connors later, because I have some words.
Uh-huh.
Willem Dafoe is so good in these movies.
Holy shit, Willem Dafoe is great. Like,
or this one, sorry. Actually, he makes cameos at least cameos in all three, but specifically first one, he's so fucking good.
Yeah.
He's so fucking good.
You know what? You know what's my favorite? You know what's my favorite Willem Dafoe line in that movie?
What?
I'm sorry I'm late. Work was murder. And he says that like so like self-aware,
so
too.
Nonchalantly too.
They're like so winking at the camera.
Well, he is winking at the camera, but he's still trying to be nonchalant about it.
I'm not degrading it. It's incredible.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's so good. Like Willem Dafoe is a national treasure as well.
Yeah. Like, it's very far from, like, my conception of Norman Osborn, but it's so entertaining in its own right that I don't care.
I'll get you again, Spider-Man!
The itsy-bitsy spider went up the water
spout. Since you brought that up...
Down came the goblin and took the spider out.
Okay, now that you brought that up, I am going to talk about how Willem Dafoe's performance in this movie reminds me of a Deadite in the Evil Dead trilogy.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Fuck off, let me have this. Fuck off, let me have this. So, You brought up the Itsy Bitsy Spider scene, and that reminds me of Deadite Cheryl singing We're Gonna Get You in the first Evil Dead.
Oh, yeah.
Which also happens in the Evil Dead 2013 remake in the extended cut. Like, they featured it in the trailer, but they cut it out for whatever reason, which is too bad, because it's actually one of the better parts of the movie.
Yeah, if there's one thing that movie needed, it's more runtime.
I also noticed, like, him switching between the Goblin and Norman. It reminds me of, whenever someone would get possessed in the Evil Dead, how they would switch between their normal selves, like, terrified, like, what's going on, Ash?
Yeah.
What's going on? To their Deadite selves going, fuck you! Your mother sucks cocks in hell!
Yeah.
That's an Exorcist
That
reference.
is an Exorcist reference, but it's the same vein.
Yeah, it's the same vein. And then Goblin talking to Norman kind of reminds me of, like, the Deadites taunting Ash.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, God. And
the heart, Osborn!
And that's the thing, too. Like, even vocally, he kind of sounds like a Deadite.
Yeah.
Like, I was waiting for Norman to scream, Dead by Dawn! Dead by Dawn!
Very true. He does sound like it.
Yeah, so, like, honestly, it's amazing how either... I don't know if it's a Sam Raimi thing or just Willem Dafoe being goofy as fuck, but it really just gave me that really silly Deadite vibe, and I just loved his performance so much. Mm-hmm. He's so fucking good in this.
I love... Norman Osborn is, like, I think his relationship with Harry is actually pretty well done.
Yeah.
I think that is actually quite similar to the comics, for the fact that he's, like, just so disappointed that Harry is anything less than exceptional.
Yeah.
It's another tragic aspect of Harry's character, that he never really had a chance to have, like, a healthy childhood.
Mm-hmm.
But he also contributes, like, the main political theme of the movie, I guess, which is... he kind of introduces it saying, like, Peter, there's some very special people like us, and the weak people are the people that sustain people like us.
Yeah, and then Uncle Ben brings up the layoffs.
Yeah, and then Uncle Ben brings up the layoffs, so... I would not say it's a socialist movie. I would say it's very critical of, at least...
Sam Raimi at least wants the rich as an appetizer.
I would hope so.
If we're going for the eat the rich metaphor.
Sure. And I guess Goblin could be seen as representing, like, kind of the logical conclusion of that mindset, because he gets so aggressive when he goes mask off. Yeah. And just kind of is a full-blown fascist.
Yeah, basically.
I kind of wish that movie had kept the thread going in the second half with that.
Yeah.
Because they just kind of drop it for the kind of more general message of great power comes great responsibility.
Which I still think is completely fine for an origin movie.
Which is fine. It works well enough for the movie. I just wish they had done a little more with that subplot.
Oh yeah, I completely agree with you.
Another thing about Norman Osborn is that the Green Goblin costume looks like shit. It looks awful.
It looks really stupid.
It got a lot of, like, Power Rangers jokes.
Yeah.
When it came out.
That's completely fair.
I honestly think a Power Rangers style, like, Halloween costume would have looked a little better. But Willem Dafoe was originally gonna wear, like, a prosthetic mask that looked like the comics Goblin. And I don't know how well that would have actually worked in the movie. But there is, if you look it up, there is actually test footage of the mask in motion. Oh, okay. And it looks really creepy.
Nice.
But in the end, they opted against it.
Because Willem Dafoe felt uncomfortable wearing it. Which I guess makes sense. And you know what? I would bend to his fucking whim. Are you shitting me?
Yeah,
it's Willem Dafoe.
I still think they could have come up with something better than what they ended up coming up with, which it's not only a bad design, it's completely unmemorable too. Mm-hmm. It's just, oh, fuck it. Like, a goblin in a unitard doesn't look good. Let's just make it metal. That'll sell a lot of toys. And it did sell a lot of toys, I guess. So, well, maybe Avi Arad does have that over me in knowledge, but...
So, Stefan, what else did you like about these movies? Or dislike?
I like, Uncle Ben and Aunt May.
Oh, yes.
Cliff Robertson and...
Rosemary Harris.
They're phenomenal. I've brought up kind of my irritation with the trope of them being kind of old people and that's their character. But I think it's done...
I think it works really well here.
Really well here. Especially because Uncle Ben really does have... In what little screen time he has a very developed character.
Yes.
Kind of this kind of slightly confused father figure who isn't quite sure how to handle Peter coming of age.
Yeah, well, that, and also I think they handle... Like, the thing is that they could have made Aunt May this, like, wise elderly sage, but instead they make her, like, the major emotional crux of these movies.
Yeah.
And I think they do an incredible job, and Rosemary Harris is so good.
Yeah. Although, she did have that one fucking goofy scene where, it's when Goblin, attacks her.
Yeah.
And he bursts through the window, and it's this actually really cool shot of just his yellow eyes.
Yeah.
And then she's like, "Deliver us!"
Yes!
And he's like, "Finish it! From evil!"
It's really... It
sucks, but it's so good.
It's so goofy, but it's so funny. I think that's what I love about the first one so much, is that it's such a... It really leans in on the goofiness of it all, and... Maybe it's stupid of me to look at Spider-Man in a more goofy light, but I think this movie does a really good job at, like, really exemplifying that, especially considering it also has to balance, like, the weird body horror shit.
I'd rather they do it here than in Punisher.
Imagine a really campy Punisher movie! Oh, wait, no, never mind.
That does exist.
There's the Thomas Jane one, which is just the campy one, and then there's the exploitation film version, which is Punisher Warzone.
Yep.
Another thing, I guess, going back to Aunt May and Uncle Ben, what really surprises me is how well the Uncle Ben death scene still holds up.
Oh, yeah.
After 20 years and after it being so both memified and done to death in other Spider-Man films.
To the point where, like, if a movie does do the Uncle Ben scene now, it's considered, like,
stupid.
It's stupid, it's a detriment to the movie, to the point where Homecoming just...
decide not to do it at all.
Does not acknowledge
They don't even acknowledge Uncle Ben, I don't think.
No, they haven't mentioned him once yet.
No.
I think one character that really gets the shaft in these movies is Mary Jane.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because they tease a lot of narrative potential out of her, especially in the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
Where they kind of show her origin. And I don't want to sound like I want everything to be from the comics, but in the comics she has a very compelling origin. Where she grows up in an abusive household, her father towards her mother and herself mostly, and he's a very belittling, just loser of a person.
Mm-hmm.
And so when she's around kids her age, she puts on a front of being this very exuberant, bouncy person.
Yeah,
which is what attracts Peter to her in the first place. Aside from the fact that obviously she's beautiful, and it looks like they're leading up to that with this movie, but they don't really go anywhere with it in this movie or the next ones. They touch on it, but even the main, like, kind of conflict she experiences throughout these movies is...
She's the damsel in distress in all these movies.
She's the damsel in distress. They do that in all three movies.
Yeah. It's just like the love triangle thing. They do it in all three movies.
So hackneyed.
Oh, yeah.
It's just redundancy after redundancy with her.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like she goes through the same plotline with Peter multiple times.
Oh, yeah.
And I really wish they did this character more justice, because I think Mary Jane kind of gets a bad rap in common discourse, where she's like, oh, cool, oh, she's a damsel in distress. And, no, but she's like a good character.
In the comics.
In the comics, and in Spectacular Spider-Man, and in Ultimate Spider-Man, but she's never really gotten that good live, like, mainstream audience portrayal. And I think that's kind of a shame, because I think now she's kind of being shafted to the side in favor of MJ and Gwen Stacy.
Yeah.
MJ meaning the one from Homecoming.
Yes.
I think that's some missed potential.
Yeah, what do you do?
Speaking of missed potential, of which I guess the first Raimi movie has much. Do you know anything about the original James Cameron treatment for this movie?
I know that there was a James Cameron treatment. I don't know much about it.
Okay, one scene in it really stuck out to me.
Mm-hmm.
So in this movie, there's kind of a thread in the first half as Peter becoming Spider-Man being a metaphor for him coming of age.
Yeah.
And again, that's another thing that kind of loses the thread in the second half. The James Cameron treatment really leans in on it.
Okay.
To the point where there's a scene where Peter wakes up in bed and there's a white sticky substance covering the room. It's his web.
Oh, no,
but it definitely feels like something else.
Should we just say it?
It's jizz. It's supposed to be... The web is a stand-in for jizz. Anyway, read Spider-Man Reign. Why? How do people think of these, like, awful Spider-Man ideas? Why is he such a magnet for these awful, shitty ideas?
I don't know. What? Yeah, like Spider-Man One More Day.
Spider-Man Reign.
Spider-Man Reign.
The entire editing of the Clone Saga. And one last thing, and this is a very minor point that I wanted to bring up. The iconic upside down kiss scene. Apparently that was absolute hell to film.
Oh, probably.
Because I forget where I heard it exactly, but I read an interview with, I think it was Tobey Maguire and maybe Kirsten Dunst, where they just mentioned, because there was like water just going in everybody's noses and mouths. Because it was a rainy scene too.
Yeah.
And I think we just need to appreciate real quick how awful it must have been for Maguire and Durst to Durst? Kristen Dunst. There it is. For Maguire and Dunst to be involved in.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway.
Alright, I got one more point I want to bring up too about the first one before we move on to Spider-Man 2.
Spider Boy.
And it's the parade scene right before the Goblin shows up. And it's mostly a really suspenseful sequence. Mm-hmm. But there's this cameo by Macy Gray, which is, I honestly believe, literally just there to sell records.
Mm-hmm.
So I did some research, and at the time of this movie being filmed, she was with Epic Records at the time, which Sony is a parent company of.
Yeah.
And it's entirely likely that Sony kind of forced Raimi to put her in to promote either the album that came out that year prior, because she had an album that came out in 2001 and an album that came out in 2003.
Mm.
So it could have been either album, but it feels like it was literally just there to sell records.
Probably was, knowing
Sony.
Yeah.
And someone we'll be talking about next week whose name starts with A and ends with Via Rod.
Mm-hmm.
So, Stefan, now that we're done with I was supposed to say the Evil Dead.
Jesus Christ, you're fucking diseased.
You're a plague, Spider-Man. No, so now that we're done with Spider-Man, do you recommend the first one?
Look, I have a lot of problems with this movie. It's head scratching to me that people can sometimes consider it among their top 2 favorite Spider-Man movies. I think the second half is pretty boring.
Okay.
I was pretty much checked out after the second and final J. Jonah Jameson scene. It loses a lot of its thematic weight at about that point. The relationship stuff doesn't work. A lot of the performances are kind of flat. The villain's entertaining, but hey, there's not too much to him.
Okay.
Would I recommend it? Yes, because I think the first half is one of the best tellings of the Spider-Man origin story.
For sure.
It's just, keep in mind that it is a context of, for its time, this movie was fucking incredible.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth appreciating that. And overall, I think it's still a good movie. I would just say that it's not a perfect movie, and we gotta just keep that context.
Okay.
Chris, what do you think of Spider-Man 1?
Okay, so you're gonna notice this. I mean, you probably noticed this in the Evil Dead episode if you listen to it. If not, go listen to it. But I am a big Sam Raimi fan. Mm-hmm. I love Sam Raimi movies so much. So I kind of know what to expect when I go into a Sam Raimi movie. And I think this is definitely the kind of campy hokiness that I expect from Sam Raimi. And for that, I strongly recommend it, like especially in Willem Dafoe's performance, in the fight sequences, and little things like that. I even think in Tobey Maguire's performance, to an extent, it gets a little, like, it's got that goofy earnestness, I think, that makes it work for me. So I would definitely recommend it on that level. I think, like you said, like, this is a great origin story for Peter, and I think this is the best that they've ever done for Spider-Man's origin story on the big screen.
Yeah.
And I
not that there's much competition.
No, not that there's much competition, but I would at least highly recommend it on that front. And also because it really did help pave the way for what superhero movies are now.
Yeah,
along
for
with,
better or
like,
for worse.
Yeah, for better or for worse, just like the first 2 X-Men movies.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I had a good time. It's still really fun to me, and maybe it is like nostalgia and Sam Raimi fanboyiness talking. But there is still a lot for me to really enjoy, and yes, it is flawed, and I think I like this movie. I don't know if I've plateaued at how much I like it, or if I'm still liking it a little less each time, but I still enjoy it enough, and I still can see myself going back to it every so often and enjoying it.
Mm-hmm. But do you recommend it, though?
Yeah, I fucking recommend it.
Okay, cool.
I really enjoy it. It's thumbs up for me.
Alright.
It's a strong thumbs up for me, actually. Very enjoyable little family comedy. Now we're going to talk about Spider-Man 2. Stefan! Tell us about Spider-Man 2.
Well,
the movie that Roger Ebert called the best superhero movie he ever saw.
Well, Spider-Man 2 Also directed by Sam Raimi and released in 2004, 2 years after the original. And Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst and James Franco and Rosemary Harris and not Cliff Robertson because he's dead! I guess he has a cameo. Are back. are back. But this time, Spider-Man has to deal with the fact that being Spider-Man is actually the worst fucking thing for his personal life. And also, there's a new villain played by Doc Ock, who's played by Alfred Molina. And he has that to fucking deal with. He's trying to win out in another fucking love triangle with Mary Jane. And, yeah, that's the movie. That's what everybody loved. That's everybody's favorite Spider-Man movie.
It's my favorite Spider-Man movie.
Great. Good. I'm glad everybody but me is wrong. So I guess I'll just lead into my general thoughts, because,
Go for it!
Look, I like this movie. I really like this movie, actually. I like about 90% of it. I'll just say my major negative now, get it out of the way. I think Peter and MJ are even more insufferable in this movie than they are in the first one.
Okay, whereas I disagree with you.
No, I think, cause they repeat another fucking love triangle.
Oh no, that part was insufferable. There's like little things about their conflict in the beginning that I liked, but
I can see how it might start off that well
it
enough.
starts off really promising because hold on, I have notes on this.
By like the end of the first quarter of the movie, I was so done with their relationship. I did not want to see any more because they did the thing where like the other member of the love triangle, it's almost worse than Harry in the sense that John Jameson is not a character. He's literally just there so Peter can...
Oh yeah, no, he's basically just a boy toy.
Shit on him, and essentially. Like, basically, the entire... when they introduce him walking alongside with Mary Jane, as Peter is, like, looking at them like a sad little puppy dog, and he's just thinking, wow, there's the man I'm gonna cuck. And that's his entire purpose as a character, and that fucking trope infuriates me. It's such lazy writing, and that people overlook it for this movie is so annoying to me. Okay. I fucking hate that aspect. Everything else is good. Okay,
can I talk about why I like the conflict with Peter and MJ up until the love triangle?
But the love triangle is like 80% of the fucking movie.
So what I really liked is that you kind of understand both of their perspectives on it. Like, it makes sense why Peter can't commit to MJ. He obviously doesn't want to endanger her, and that, therefore, he's doomed to not get into a relationship with her. He can't. Yeah. And obviously this upsets her, and it makes sense why she's completely furious with him, because he can't make it to this performance of whatever
he's a fucking flake.
Because he's a fucking flake, and it makes sense. It makes sense why, because
how's she supposed to know that, like,
he's Spider-Man?
Yeah, like, she has no reason to believe that, so why wouldn't she be angry?
No, like,
I get that.
It's completely justified. Like, everything, like, that, which is, I think, about the first half of the movie, is great.
I think it's a little less than that.
Okay, well, regardless.
I know what you mean.
Like, the love triangle isn't 80% of the movie.
I'm exaggerating, but it's really, really, really annoying.
Oh, no, and I think the love triangle is fucking stupid, too. But I think that everything leading up to the love triangle is really, really solid stuff.
I do like their last scene together, which is after that hackneyed fucking wedding scene.
Yes.
Where MJ is talking to Peter in the apartment, and she's like, I don't care that people are going to be gunning for you. I want to be with you.
Yeah.
If that's part of being with you, that's part of the deal, and I'm okay with it. I thought that scene was really good. If only they didn't repeat those exact same fucking beats in the next movie. Mm-hmm. But yeah, basically the entire middle of their relationship arc in this movie, I can't stand.
That's completely fair.
I want to die a little bit every time I see it.
No, that's completely fair. I just think that everything leading up to it is wonderful.
But the rest of the movie is great.
Yes. This is my favorite Spider-Man movie, warts and all. I mean, like, the acting's a lot better. I think this movie uses a lot of visual storytelling, which is great. Mm-hmm. I find that this is, out of all three of them, the least melodramatic, and definitely the one that actually uses a lot of, like, really nuanced ways of presenting a lot of the more dramatic and emotional scenes. Like, for example, one of the major subplots in the movie involves Peter and Aunt May, and how Peter feels guilty about Uncle Ben's death because he feels partly responsible because he let the carjacker go down the elevator when he stole the wrestling guy's money. And when he tells Aunt May, that scene, and it's all in both A, Sam Raimi's direction, and B, Rosemary Harris's incredible performance.
Yeah.
Where, if this were any other filmmaker, that scene would have been Aunt May screaming at Peter with tears streaming down her eyes, like, "How could you monster!" But because Sam Raimi knows what subtlety is, to an extent. Okay.
What the fuck?
Can I rephrase it then? Can you give me a chance?
Please do.
Okay. Because Sam Raimi developed an understanding of subtlety for this movie. Better?
That's better. That was the most earnest delivery I've ever heard, too.
I honestly do think he learned a thing or two about subtlety from this movie. Where was I? So, because Sam Raimi kind of developed an understanding of what subtlety is as a filmmaker, and I think this is really a huge step for him as a filmmaker, I would argue that this is probably one of his more mature films.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this and Darkman.
I don't know, man. Army of Darkness is pretty grounded.
Hail to the king, baby.
Give me some sugar.
I remember we were watching that together and you just lost your fucking shit.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Folks, watching Army of Darkness with Stefan was a fucking blessing, and the best thing to come out of sequel Decay was making him watch that movie.
Evil Dead 2, because I don't like the first one, but Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness are some of my favorite viewing experiences that this podcast has brought me.
Yes, and watching them with you was a fucking honor.
Yes.
But anyway, so where was I? So it made the scene all the more better because she just kind of says nothing. All the emotion is in her face. Mm-hmm. You can tell based on her mannerisms and her emotions in her face. How she's feeling and how upset she is. She doesn't need to say it. She just gets up, goes upstairs. And it's so powerful and it's so beautiful. Mm-hmm. And it's one of my favorite moments in the entire fucking movie.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. I think that what this movie... this is still, like... I think at this point, I will say it's probably tied for my second favorite Spider-Man movie with Homecoming. Okay. I still think Spider-Verse is miles ahead of it.
Hey, I get it.
Hey. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, I'm very smart.
And again, going back to, like, visual storytelling... the first 20 minutes of this movie are fantastic. Because basically the opening narration isn't, I'm going to explain everything like Spider-Man 3 or Spider-Man 1. The opening narration is like, you know, being Spider-Man means I have to have a lot of responsibilities, and I do a great job at balancing my personal life and my public life as Spider-Man. Also, I really love Mary Jane Watson. And then the next 20 minutes are him being a fucking failure.
Just fucking...
And there's never a moment where someone says, you're a failure and you're doing a terrible job at life. Like, it's definitely hinted at, but it's mostly through, like, really, like, kind of subtle dialogue.
I don't know if there's a better example of futility than him just showing up in that broom closet and just, like, struggling to close the door on the brooms that are falling out. I think this movie probably has, like, my favorite Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker stuff.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Pizza time.
I think... Pizza time.
No, he slams it down first.
Pizza time. Pizza time. I think... Like, okay, so this is still, like, definitely tied for... At this point, I think it's tied for my second favorite Spider-Man with Homecoming.
Okay, whereas I think...
This
is tied for my favorite with, Into the Spider-Verse. If not, this has a slight, and boy do I mean slight edge.
Well, I don't think it competes with Spider-Verse at all.
Well, fuck you. It's just my opinion. You know,
but I mean,
we're all here for the discourse, gang. It's just our opinions. Be sure to leave your opinions in the comments, and we're gonna tell you that you're a fucking...
Tune in next week for pathetic SJW Chris Ranta gets owned.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am so sorry that I said...
I think what this movie does do better than any other Spider-Man movie is illustrate just how much being Spider-Man fucks up Peter's life.
Yeah, this movie does an amazing job at that. Again, like the first 20 minutes alone does an amazing job at that.
And not just in the case of what it like literally shows you happening on screen, but it's just the thematic value of Peter's heart not really being into it and being unsure of like if he even wants to be Spider-Man, or if he even should be Spider-Man, because it's so obviously, like, it has such a detrimental effect on his life.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially, at least when he can't manage anything else.
Yeah.
When he's got so much other stuff on his plate.
Mm-hmm.
And that captures, like, an essential aspect of Spider-Man that hasn't really been captured in any of the other adaptations.
No.
And sometimes it's just not what they're focusing on.
Yeah, like, that's the thing, is, like, it's just not what they're focusing on. Like,
mm-hmm.
I think that the Tom Holland movies are doing something different. Spider-Verse is doing something different.
I don't know what the fuck Amazing Spider-Man was doing, but it was...
selling toys.
I guess, yeah. Thanks, Avi Arad. You fucking imbecile.
I think all the performances are a lot better in this, too.
Mm-hmm. I think this movie has the best performances out of any of the Sam Raimi movies.
Oh, for sure, yeah. And I would even say a better villain in Alfred Molina as Doc Ock, who, again, chef's kiss on the casting choice, boys.
Mm-hmm.
He is incredible in this. Also, I want to talk about that hospital scene real quick where they're operating on him. I don't know if you noticed, but I sure did. I even have notes on this. It's probably my favorite scene in the movie because, one, it goes back to Sam's horror roots, especially the body horror shit.
Yep.
And two...
anybody take shop class?
Every Raimiism is in that scene. Camera trailing in the first person, like... well,
yes.
Like the evil...
Yeah, like the Deadites. Or whatever
like the Deadites are coming up against Bruce Campbell. There's, like, extreme close-ups on people's faces reacting in pure terror. There's even, like, the blatant Evil Dead homages of, like, the chainsaw sequence where he's cutting off the tentacle arm.
Yes.
And even Otto screaming, "No!" reminded me of Bruce Campbell screaming, "No!" at the end of, fucking Evil Dead 2. And the end of, the director's cut of Army of Darkness, where he's like, "I slept too long!"
I love Alfred Molina as Doc Ock. Very different from the comics and, like, from the traditional depiction of him, but it's still very good. Most of, like, the depth of his character is the very beginning of his appearances and the very end.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like there's a super much to him.
Yeah.
But he's a lot of fun to watch. He's very entertaining. And he looks great.
Oh, yeah.
As Doc Ock.
They use a lot of practical effects.
There was a lot of practical effects for his arms. Like, I'm pretty sure any scene that, aside from any scene where it was literally impossible to do practical effects, they are just practical effects. They're controlled by puppeteers who have, like, little levers and switches and strings that they pull for every, like, expression that the tentacles have.
Good boy Sam Raimi, going back to his practical roots.
Absolutely. And it still looks phenomenal.
Oh, yeah. Like, I think this is the best looking movie out of the three, especially in the cinematography. Like, there's some beautiful shots, like in the bank sequence with Doc Ock looking to his side to see Spider-Man. It's a beautiful shot. Or, like, closer to the climax, with Peter's fist as he's regaining his spider power. Beautifully shot. Danny Elfman's music swelling up. And the fight scenes look better than ever.
Yeah, I think this definitely is the best action of any of the movies.
Yeah, it's definitely the most slapsticky at points, too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's so good. And it uses the slapstick so effectively, and it uses, like, the fluidity of it and the connectedness so effectively.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very well crafted movie.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think one of my favorite parts, though, and this is, I think, might be my favorite moment with Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker, is when, like, he's given up on being Spider-Man at this point, and he's, like, walking down the street, like, all happy, he just bought a hot dog, and he just sees ambulances streaming by, and he just kind of turns into this, like, dumbstruck, and he's just staring, and it looks like he's gonna do something, then he just takes a big bite of a hot dog, and
that's during the montage sequence.
Yeah,
right?
that's the montage sequence. Raindrops keep falling on my head.
Yeah.
Actually a great song choice.
That is actually, again, like, going back to examples of visual storytelling, like, that montage is so fucking good.
But that little sequence right there is fucking hilarious.
Oh my god, yeah. I think Otto's arc as Doc Ock is more interesting than Norman's arc. It feels more tragic.
Yes.
Because, like, one of the major themes of this movie, especially with Doc Ock, is the arrogance of man.
Yeah.
And I guess going back to that famous Jurassic Park quote that Jeff Goldblum uses.
Yeah.
You scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not you could that you forgot to stop and go whether or not you should.
Yeah.
Like, that's how Doc Ock's arc really feels. And it's interesting watching his arrogance and scientific desires take over his life. Mm-hmm. And I think that the tentacles are symbols for his evil tendencies. And they show that they're not in control of him and that these characteristics were there in him from the get-go.
Yeah.
And it's really tragic watching him fall.
Yeah.
He does as a character.
He does the kind of talking to himself thing as well, like kind of like Norman actually.
Yeah, kind of.
It's kind of a recurring theme for Raimi Spider-Man.
Very
villains.
Deadite-like. So it's a very recurring theme for Sam Raimi as an auteur.
You're at a 12. I need you at a 2. Yeah, it's because like it's not like you're right. The tentacles aren't really controlling him. Like it's not like they could stop him when he decided to sacrifice himself.
No,
like they're entirely of his volitions to just remove his inhibitions, I guess.
Yeah, well,
like these tendencies were always there for him.
Exactly.
Like you can tell even when he's being nice to Peter, you can tell he's kind of arrogant.
Oh, fuck yeah. I guess if we're gonna talk about Spider-Man 2, I guess we gotta talk about the train scene, huh?
I mean, I think it's contractually required.
Yeah, I think it is. So, again, a scene that's so, like, really iconic with this trilogy.
Yeah.
Again, just holds up so fucking well.
Yeah.
I mean, it obviously works as... It obviously is more shown as a New York solidarity moment, but the one thing I really love about it is how it further humanizes Spider-Man and gives us a reminder that the hero that these people are looking up to, and this hero that's sacrificing himself in the name of protecting New York from, like, these fucking vicious abominations of science is just a kid. Like, just this university kid.
Okay, but it's fucking hilarious when the guy says, he's just a kid! And he's like, he's like 30!
Oh, no. It is really funny. Again, just that reminder that Tobey Maguire was, like, fucking 27 when they did this.
Yeah.
Speaking of Tobey Maguire... Did you know that he almost didn't reprise his role?
Really?
Yeah, originally Jake Gyllenhaal was going to replace him because he got injured on the set of Seabiscuit.
Interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, back to
I think that probably would have been better.
Anyway, back to the train sequence. Yeah, it's a little corny, like, again, that Tobey Maguire looks like he's fucking 40.
Yeah.
But I think that it works so well, like, removing that part out of your brain. It's very rare that I say things akin to turn your brain off. Fuck me.
Every time I hear that, my brain dies a little bit.
No, but like, I'm always able to kind of separate myself from it a little bit because I think that just that moment, and there's so much weight to that moment for me that I'm able to separate it.
Yeah, I get that.
I think in concept it works incredibly well, and I think for the most part in practice it works incredibly well. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what sticks out to me most in the train sequence, and not them going, "Yo, you gotta get through me." But this does work better as a New York solidarity moment than the first one, where it's just people throwing shit at Norman going, "You mess with one, you mess with all of us."
It's like, you hate him.
Well, yeah, because, like...
You hate Spider-Man.
Well, yeah, because basically the entirety of the first movie does a really good job at, like, showing, like, the reception that he gets initially as a hero.
Which is incredibly divisive.
Yeah, which is incredibly divisive. I don't know if it's like that in the comics, though.
It varies depending on the time period, but more often than not, like, the classic thing is, like, the hero or menace thing, where it's, like, something like 30% of the population thinks he's the hero, and 70% is, like, poisoned by Daily Bugle propaganda.
Okay, because I was going to say that's probably something in the comics, too, but I think that, like, the first movie does a great job at doing that.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to bring up was that some of the scene transitions are really cool. Like, this is probably the best edited of the Spider-Man movies. Like, there's this great scene transition where we go from the train to Harry's mansion, and the transition is through the spider insignia on his suit.
Yeah.
Like, that was really fucking cool. And the last thing I want to bring up are the opening credits, which are fucking amazing.
Also
and
really good, yeah.
Designed by Alex Ross.
Yes! Oh, they look so good.
They look so fucking good. And
it's some of Alex Ross's best work, honestly.
Oh, absolutely. And I was gonna say, fuck the Spider-Man 3 opening credits, which is basically just goddamn footage from the first two movies. More the first one, though. Like, Did you notice that?
Yep.
Like, how it's like 90% the first one, and then they stop showing footage, and then they go back to showing, like, a little bit of footage from Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
Like, they go really in-depth on recapping the first one and 3 for some fucking reason, which is fucking stupid.
Yeah.
This one does such a good job at recapping the first one.
So, I guess for the uninitiated, Alex Ross is a comic book artist who, he's most known for Astro City right now, and also he did a book for DC, drew a book for DC called Kingdom Come, which is one of the best DC comics ever.
Yeah.
And he has a very, like, kind of, I guess, classical style.
He does, yeah.
Very painterly, too.
Mm-hmm.
Where he does kind of run into the thing where, like, all of the male characters kind of, like, look extremely identical. But he actually avoids that pretty well in the Spider-Man 2 opening credits.
Yeah, because he's basically using the footage as
his base.
Yeah.
And, like, he's an incredible artist in general, but these opening credits are some of his best work.
Oh, absolutely. So, Stefan, thumbs up, thumbs down, middle of the chode. Finally, my 5 seconds of silence, I need to do noise reduction.
I heartily recommend Spider-Man 2. No, I really like Spider-Man 2. It's definitely the best one of these 3 movies, like, by far. I still have really severe problems with the handling of the relationship stuff. I think it's extremely obtrusive. It stops the movie dead, and I want to die a little bit every time I see it. But everything else is handled so well that it's definitely worth it, and I 100% recommend it.
Yeah. Warts and all, I strongly recommend this. It's a thumbs up for me. It's my favorite. It's, again, like, either tied or, like, really inching towards first favorite for Spider-Man movies for me. With Into the Spider-Verse being a really close second, or, again, tied. I mean, there are problems with it. I do agree with you on the love triangle aspect, at least, but everything leading up to it was really solid and had a lot of potential to be really strong. And the other issue I really had with it that I didn't bring up at all, and I forgot to, was the whole joke involving the street violinist.
Oh, fuck, I keep forgetting about that. Yeah, that was pretty icky.
Yeah.
Like, there's a street violinist that turns up at some parts, like, singing the Spider-Man theme, or a variation of the Spider-Man theme.
Yeah.
And
they're really leaning in on her accent.
They're really leaning in on the Chinese stereotype, which is...
They do it twice.
So fucking uncool.
It is really uncool, and thankfully it's only, like, a minute of the movie.
Yeah, thank God.
I also wanted to bring up, there is an extended cut of Spider-Man 2 called Spider-Man 2.1.
Really?
Yeah, and my favorite scene in Spider-Man 2.1, so when J. Jonah Jameson gets the suit from that...
Oh, yeah!
There's this great sequence where he's jumping around his desk in the costume.
That's
and it's
so great.
Fucking hilarious. I mean, like, the rest of the cut really just kind of adds a little bit more to it. Like, it doesn't really matter which cut you watch either way. I don't think it really adds a whole lot to it. Like, we watched the theatrical cut and we were happy regardless. The only thing we missed was that J. Jonah Jameson scene. But yeah, no, I highly recommend this movie. It's so easy to find. Go buy it or rent it or whatever it.
Yeah.
Also, I really want to bring up a couple people that I forgot to mention that are in these movies. Elizabeth Banks.
Oh yeah, she's Betty Branch.
She just shows up, yeah. She's great. And Joel McHale is the
Joel
bank
McHale,
teller.
I totally meant to bring him up.
Yeah, like, he's wonderful in this movie because he's basically playing himself on The Soup.
Yeah.
Or Jeff in Community, but mostly himself on The Soup. That's a dated reference.
Sure, I don't know what that is.
Oh, it's imagine Tosh.0 but for reality shows. And funnier.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And more sardonic.
Okay.
And not leaning so much on, like, being crass.
Okay.
Basically, imagine, like, Joel McHale hosting Tosh.0.
Yeah, I'd be down for that.
Yeah, it's really funny. Anyway, we are going to take a short break because we've been talking for over an hour now.
We sure have.
And we'll be back after this message from our sponsor. Come here, Oliver. Be our sponsor.
Oliver. Oliver!
Say hi, Oliver. Okay, I guess not.
Oliver, you fucking hack. Guys, I have a cat. I'm holding a cat right now. This is very important, and I think you should all know this. His name's Oliver, and he and I are best friends, and I'm taking him home. Anyway, Chris, how's your day going?
Take my fucking cat and I'll kill you.
Well, that was unnecessarily hostile. Speaking of unnecessarily hostile...
Spider-Man 3!
Hell yeah!
Oh god. I'll explain Spider-Man 3.
Please do, because God knows I'm not going to do it.
Okay, so Spider-Man 3 is a 2007 American clusterfuck directed by Sam Raimi from a screenplay written by Sam Raimi, Ivan Raimi, and Alvin Sargent, who also wrote Spider-Man 2. Mm-hmm. Hi, Oliver.
Aw, he climbed on your shoulders.
My cat just climbed on my shoulders.
Like a parrot would.
He's such a good boy. He's such a good boy. Anyway, Spider-Man 3 is a terrible movie. Everyone reprises their roles, and this time around, we have newcomers James Cromwell, Topher Grace, Bryce Dallas Howard.
What the fuck is Thomas Hayden Church?
Oh yeah, and Thomas Hayden Church. The holiest of all character actors.
Oh yes.
Just because of the last name. And this movie follows Peter Parker as he's trying to propose to Mary Jane while also fighting off the Sandman, New Goblin, aka Harry Osborn, and legendary Grand Wizard of the Clan, David Duke.
Topher Grace. As Venom. For some reason. What a fucking bizarre casting decision that is. Like,
Jesus Christ.
Performance aside, and we'll get to the actual execution. What a fucking weird casting decision.
Yeah, because at this point he was only really known for that 70s show.
And, like, Venom is, like, in the comics, he's this massive, muscular dude.
Yeah.
Who's just this really tough motherfucker.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Hey, you know who can play him?
Topher Grace.
The little kid from that 70s show.
Things were not all right in Spider-Man 3. Okay, so I hate this movie, and I know you do too.
Yeah, but Chris, how do you really feel about it? Why don't you tell the people what your real thoughts on Spider-Man 3 are?
I didn't like it at all.
Hey, good! Do you want to hear my thoughts on Spider-Man 3?
You didn't like it at all?
I would rather kill myself than ever watch it again.
Cool! My first thing of notes that I haven't mentioned yet on this show are... There's a scene where they show that Flint is hiding from the cops, and 40 seconds later we hear his wife say that he's an escaped convict, as if we're stupid.
Yeah!
That should tell you a lot about Spider-Man 3.
Yeah, it's a movie that presumes that the audience is a fucking comprised of idiots.
Okay, so before we really get into it, though, I do want to say, because you mentioned this earlier, and I think we need to say this, I'm a huge Sam Raimi fan.
I'm not, but okay.
I'm a huge Sam Raimi fan, and you will be eventually.
I love 2 of his movies, neither of which we are covering today.
No.
But we have. Watch that episode.
Okay, so I'm a huge Sam Raimi fan. I love him to death. And I understand that there was a lot of studio interference with this movie. However, neither of us are planning to let Sam Raimi off the hook with this. Like, not at all. Because I feel like a lot of this was also his fault.
So, a lot of movie discourse when it comes to studio interference is almost universally like, oh, it's the studio who fucked this up. It's the executives who fucked this up and ruined the director's vision. And in a lot of cases, that is 100% the case.
Yes.
And that is somewhat the case. Like, Avi Arad really fucked with this movie and pushed for Venom to be included when he really shouldn't have. The producers pushed for Gwen Stacy to be included when she was completely superfluous. But it was Sam Raimi's idea to have a third villain and really over-clutter things. And it was Sam Raimi's idea to make Sandman, Flint Marko, Uncle Ben's actual killer, and just add a whole new layer of redundancy to this already redundant trilogy. And, in fact, originally he wanted to have the Vulture as the third villain, played by Ben Kingsley.
Yeah.
And, honestly, just adding the third villain in general probably was a mistake. Mm-hmm. And that was Sam Raimi's original idea.
Yes.
So, as much as I would like to shit on Avi Arad and the producers, and we probably will do a fair bit of that next episode, a lot of that is just bad creative decisions from the director himself.
Jesus. Okay, so I think this movie has a lot of potential. There's a lot of really interesting things that it introduces. Uh-huh. And then everything just feels completely squandered because of really, really stupid things that they decide to do instead of really delving into the darker side of things.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, like, the Harry subplot being like, oh, he has amnesia, instead of, like, really delving on the last scene with him and Norman in Spider-Man 2, where there seems to be this huge conflict between him and his father, as well as the conflict of, like, should I still be friends with Peter after finding out he's Spider-Man?
Yeah.
We just decided, let's just throw that out the window for a goofy amnesia subplot.
And then have that exact same theme one more time.
Yeah, or with
poorly done.
Or with the black suit thing. It would be really cool to see Peter have an internal conflict with his dark side and his earnest good boy side. But instead, we decide, instead of showing off his actual dark side, we're just going to show emo Peter dancing in jazz bars to be an asshole and looking like a cocky douchebag in New York.
Which, in isolation, is a very funny scene.
Oh yeah, like, in isolation, it's really good meme shit.
But
in the context of the movie, it's pathetic.
It also happens, like, an hour and a half into the movie.
Yes.
And by that point, I want death. I do not want to be there anymore, and just having to see this causes me physical pain. I had to take multiple breaks in the second half of this movie.
There's also a lot of weird holes as well. Like, why the fuck does Mary Jane act like she has no idea what happened between Peter and Harry at the beginning of the movie?
Yeah.
And then later on, like, she acts like she does know when she lies about Peter's whereabouts at the ceremony. Harry's like, oh, where's Peter? Oh, he's off doing photography stuff, I think. Like, the best parts of this movie are the so bad it's good moments. Anything with J. Jonah Jameson, like that last scene with him in the climax is hilarious.
I like the scene with him and his medication.
Yes, that too. That scene's really funny.
Also, the line where Betty Brant's like, Mr. Jameson, your wife lost her checkbook. Finally, some good news.
And also the Bruce Campbell cameo, which I think is your favorite out of the three?
Yes.
Okay, my favorite's still Spider-Man 2, but I mean, Spider-Man 3 cameo is also fucking amazing.
Yeah.
I am French.
And you know that.
I also love the little whistle he has. Parker blows into the whistle and then just starts looking at the reservation book. It's so fucking silly. Like, I think the most interesting plot in the entire movie is all around Sandman.
Yeah, because Sandman's the only character really worth a damn.
Yeah.
And that's not even saying much, because they do take the really fucking bad direction of, oh, he's the actual Uncle Ben killer, so we have to fucking deal with Peter wanting revenge on Uncle Ben's killer again.
Yeah, but at least, like, yes, it's really creatively bankrupt, but they did the best they could with it.
I think it's the best possible execution of a really fucking bad idea.
Yes. I really like Thomas Hayden Church in this movie. He's absolutely fantastic.
He's great.
He is probably the best actor in the entire movie.
Probably.
He does a great job playing Flint. He does a great job at getting those emotions across.
Even like that scene where, like, I don't think Thomas Hayden Church is actually in this scene. I think it's all CGI. But when he, like, wakes up for the first time as Sandman and he's just this sand being and he tries to grab his locket.
Yeah.
With the locket with his daughter's picture in it, and he can't at first because his hand goes through it, or it goes through his hand. That scene is fucking heartbreaking.
That scene's really heartbreaking. And also the scene at the end of the climax where he monologues about not wanting Peter to forgive him per se, but at least understand what actually happened between him and Uncle Ben is a really great moment, and he's incredible in that scene.
Yeah. Too bad about all the other villains, huh?
Yeah. New Goblin's barely in it, and Venom is embarrassing. And just shoehorned in, as we all know.
New Goblin, like we mentioned earlier, is just more redundancy.
Yeah.
It's more redundancy from Harry's plot. They repeat the same plot points like twice within the same movie and like 3 times within the same franchise.
Yeah.
His character design is kind of uninspired, honestly, in my opinion. Like, your mileage may vary, but I don't think it's super interesting to look at. He's
Not
just
really,
a snowboarder.
Yeah, basically. Like, I think, honestly, I have a lot of problems with the Venom movie.
Like, say what you will about the kind of campy nature of the original Green Goblin costume from the comics.
Yeah.
That's much more memorable than Dickhead with a hoverboard.
Yeah, or even, like, with Venom, like, he's just kind of, like, dude in a suit.
Yeah.
Whereas in, like, the Venom movie, say what you will about that movie, but at least,
I have problems with that design as well.
Yeah, but at least that design looks better.
It does look better, but...
Slightly, but not, like I said, it's not great.
It doesn't look great, but, like, it looks better than this, which is basically black suit Spider-Man plus occasional teeth and, like, bag lady nails.
Yeah, it's embarrassing.
And Topher Grace, like, his voice coming out of Venom is so hilarious. And they don't mean for it to be hilarious.
No.
It's so bad.
Mm-hmm.
I love it, but it's awful, and I hate it.
It's... God.
And they just muddy up the movie.
And then by the time you get to the climax, you have, like, no emotion, because, like you said, you're completely checked fucking out after that, because you don't care about anything. And none of these arcs are actually naturally resolved either. I was going to say naturally dissolved. Naturally resolved. Like, everything just kind of seems forced to a conclusion, and it just feels like a complete shitstorm. Like, you would ask me, like, how I would have structured this movie when we weren't recording. And I don't really like going into, what I wish happened. Yeah. But
neither of us have gone to film school.
Neither of us have gone to film school, and also
we took a screenwriting class.
A single screenwriting class, and I've taken 1 or 2 film studies classes in my lifetime.
Yeah.
But, like, if I was to restructure this movie, I would say keep the first 20 or so minutes in, up to the fight scene with him and New Goblin. And then from there, don't do the amnesia thing. Have him get back up. Have him, still have his memory when he wakes up in the hospital. have the actual conflict that was teased at the end of Spider-Man 2 between Harry and Norman and Peter and himself. Have that conflict develop. Give more screen time to Flint/Sandman. Cut out Venom entirely. I would say keep the symbiote in, because I think that makes for a really good... I think one of Sam Raimi's common themes that he explores throughout his movies is the theme of duality.
Yeah.
Obviously in Evil Dead, and especially in these movies as well. And I think there's some really interesting things he could have done with duality in this. It just feels like he really shit the bed on that.
Yeah.
So I think instead of having all this emo Peter bullshit, like actually have Peter have an actual conflict. Have him be a more vengeful Spider-Man. I wouldn't say go completely Punisher-esque, but kind of like lean in that direction a little bit.
Right.
And have everything kind of develop naturally and resolve themselves naturally in the climax.
Yeah.
Instead of be a complete clusterfuck.
Because
this movie's a complete fucking mess. And I think that would make for a much better movie. I think anyway.
I 100% agree with you.
So maybe one day I'll write my fan screenplay.
Hell yeah. Do it.
The other things I wanted to bring up were the sequence in the climax where Spider-Man swoops in, and it's him posing in front of the American flag.
Oh.
And that felt so studio mandated.
They do this in the first movie too, but
yeah, but it feels so much worse in this one.
I don't know why either, because it's not that different, but it just feels so... I think it's just because
I think it's longer too,
and it feels like such a slap in the face after what we just witnessed.
Yeah.
You'll eat the slop and you'll like it, and you'll take a fucking 15-second close-up of an American flag. You'll take it.
Sony.
And you'll fucking like it.
Oh, Sony.
I hate my fucking life.
What would we do without you?
Probably much better.
And then the other thing I have in my notes, because I didn't write much notes for this, in the last half of the movie, Peter hits Mary Jane.
Oh.
And
I keep forgetting about that.
And Eddie Brock actually threatens to rape Mary Jane at one point, because he says, my spider sense is tingling, if you know what I mean, while basically roping her.
Yeah,
like, it's fucking disgusting.
Sam Raimi has interesting ideas on how to use women in his movies. I'll say that.
I think he got better after this.
I would hope so.
Like I said, Drag Me to Hell, Ash vs. Evil Dead. I'd even say, like, at least the Evil Dead remake tried with their protagonist, and I think they failed, but at least there was an effort thrown in. Mm-hmm. He was a producer on that, and they were completely down with having a more female protagonist. Why must we remake movies with women?
Why won't Topher Grace date me?
Why won't David Duke date me?
Jesus Christ. It's funny because incels are Nazis. So Peter never really faces any consequences for hitting Mary Jane.
No, not really. And, I mean, thankfully Eddie Brock gets blown up after threatening to rape Mary Jane, but nothing really happens to Peter. Thematically, this movie's a clusterfuck, and any sort of themes it does try to delve into, it just squanders.
Yeah. I guess one of my main problems with it is that this movie feels... I touched on it earlier, but it just feels like the epitome of redundancy. A lot of the plot points that they drag Harry through are basically recycled ones from the second movie. Mm-hmm. A lot of the plot points with Peter and MJ's relationship are pretty much from the second movie.
Yeah.
They even bring back another fucking love triangle. This time back to Peter, Mary Jane, and Harry, and even with a little bit of Gwen and Eddie thrown in for good measure, because boy did we ever ask for those characters.
Gwen Stacy's terrible in this.
Played
by Ron Howard's kid.
Oh yeah, Bryce Dallas Howard. And, why? Why do we need Gwen Stacy? Why do we need Gwen Stacy in this fucking movie? And it was at the point where, the only characterization that Gwen Stacy had was that she dies.
Yeah. So,
even then, she was, not that interesting of a character. Why would you feel the need to bring her in other than to nostalgia pander to Spider-Man dorks? It was studio mandated is why. Because I guess they wanted to sell Gwen Stacy toys. Because that's such a fucking hot seller those days.
I was gonna say, I'm sure those flew off the shelves.
Yeah, Jesus. I still really don't like that they brought the love triangle back for Spider-Man 2. It is 10 times as inexcusable that they brought it back for Spider-Man 3. I've repeated this to the point of it not being funny anymore, but I crave death when the relationship scenes happen. That was true for Spider-Man 2. It's so much worse for Spider-Man 3. Tobey Maguire is fucking awful in this movie.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened between this and Spider-Man 2.
Oh yeah, like he's just an absolute fucking asshole in this.
Kirsten Dunst has nothing to work with.
Nope, she doesn't.
James Franco has nothing to work with.
Nope.
Topher Grace is completely miscast. Thomas Hayden Church is pretty good.
Yeah, Thomas Hayden Church is great in this movie.
Rosemary Harris, bless her heart, is given nothing to work with. Every conversation feels inorganic. It could easily be resolved by people talking to one another, like just actually having an adult conversation.
Yeah.
And I get it. That can't always be the case in movies because they're not meant to be picture-perfect interpretations of what you would do in your actual life. Yeah. But it really gets absurd in this.
Oh, yeah.
Like the bridge scene where Mary Jane, like, fake breaks up with Peter because Harry threatened her. Like, what would have been the ramifications of her just telling Peter, yeah, Harry's goblin again and he's threatening me? Yeah. What would have been the ramifications? It
would have led to the same thing.
It would have led to the same thing. And it's just contrived drama for the sake of contrived drama.
It's fucking stupid. Oh, yeah, I forgot to bring up my most underappreciated character in both Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 3. Mm-hmm. And that is the landlord, Mr. Dickovich.
Yeah.
Who is fucking awesome. Like, let me tell you right now, if one of your favorite lines from these Spider-Man movies isn't rent, you're a fraud and you're stupid and I hate you. Because, god damn it, rent!
Let me hear it from my boy, the only good landlord.
Mr. Dickovich.
Mr. Dickovich.
You'll get your rent when you fix this damn door! The other great line in Spider-Man 3 from Mr. Dickovich is when he's giving Peter relationship advice. And he goes, tell her, you're a good woman, I'm a good man, and then he just stops.
And it just stares bug-eyed at him for like 15 seconds.
And try using that as well as the line, give me some sugar baby on your date, and I am sure you will get laid.
You heard it, folks. We're top seduction artists.
Yes.
Here on Pickup Decay. My favorite parts in this super serious, down-to-earth movie is when Topher Grace goes to church and begs Jesus to hook a brother up and murder somebody for him. Yo, Jesus, can you hook a brother up and kill the man who cucked me?
I'm tired of jerking off in the closet while looking at these photoshopped images I did. Please, God.
Topher Grace is peak incel in this movie.
Oh, he
like,
is.
He like
just like how he was peak incel in BlacKkKlansman.
Oh, also true.
He's got a huge, and I guess in that 70s show.
Like, he thinks he's dating Gwen after, like, they only went on a coffee date, gets cucked by the Chad emo Peter. And then begs
Jesus.
He begs the trad god to kill the man. Oh, fuck. Ever since I thought of that framing, it's just been the most beautiful thing to imagine. Oh, I love this movie now. Just kidding, I hate it.
So, Stefan, would you recommend Spider-Man 3?
Neither
of us would.
No, I would not. I think Spider-Man 3 is sometimes mentioned alongside of Revenge of the Sith as movies that are like
underrated.
good for the memes.
Oh yeah, that too.
And funny, so bad they're good. Spider-Man 3 is not enjoyable to watch in full.
No.
It feels so fucking long.
It's excruciating. Like, this took 2 viewings for me to get through this time.
I had to take a lot of breaks. That's a bad sign for a movie.
I took a 20-hour cigarette break from this movie. That should tell you something.
It's, even by the time you get to the parts that are supposedly so bad they're good, I am emotionally dead. This movie, it's exhausting to watch. Mm-hmm. It bounces all over the place. We didn't really mention it, but the editing is fucking awful.
Oh my god, yeah. There's actually another cut of this movie. It's called the editor's cut, which I haven't seen yet, and I don't know if it really makes an improvement or not. I doubt it.
Yeah,
but
I must have seen this movie in the double digits because I used to watch like an old Spanish dub version of it.
Oh, okay.
No, it doesn't help.
Probably not.
But I couldn't tell you what order the scenes come in. Because it just bounces all over the fucking place.
Oh, this movie's a disaster.
The best I can recommend is to just watch the funny scenes on YouTube because they're funny in their isolation.
Yeah. They're funny on their own. They're not funny in the context of the rest of the movie.
Because the rest of the movie is just so poorly conceived and poorly executed.
For once in my miserable fucking life, I am with Stefan on this completely. Like, if you're gonna watch this, I highly recommend you watch the funnier scenes on YouTube because that's the best way to do it. If you want to watch a really good, like, funny little video on YouTube. I highly recommend the Spider-Man 3 dance scene with realistic audio, which takes out the James Brown song.
Yeah.
Like, it's so much funnier than the actual Emo Peter scene. I'm gonna sum this up with something my partner wrote on Facebook when I mentioned I was watching this movie. He said, Spider trash, this movie can suck my ass. Look out, here comes the spider trash.
Yay!
And I think that is...
Good job, Nick.
That is without a doubt the best way to describe this movie. It is complete fucking trash. I hate it so much. Don't watch this movie in its entirety. Just watch the funny shit on YouTube. Now anyway, Stefan, why don't we talk about what could have been?
So, originally they were planning on going to at least Spider-Man 6.
Yeah.
That was the original plan. So originally the third villain that Sam Raimi wanted for Spider-Man 3 was the Vulture, played by Ben Kingsley, who ended up dropping out.
Yeah.
For Spider-Man, and plus he was replaced with Venom, who Avi Arad really pushed for anyway.
Yeah, he's Avi Arad friendly, so he must be good.
Spider-Man 4 was originally going to have Vulture played by John Malkovich, which sounds whatever. It was also going to feature Felicia Hardy, who in the comics is Black Cat, played by Anne Hathaway. But now Sam Raimi claims she was going to play like Felicia Hardy as the Black Cat, but there are other sources that say that she was going to play the Vulturess. So, like, I guess Adrian Toomes' daughter, who becomes like a Vulture sidekick. And that sounds fucking awful. And I guess it never really got to a place where Sam Raimi was happy with it.
Yeah,
so
and also the studio wanted the Lizard for Spider-Man 4.
Also true. And
now, if I can say something about the Lizard.
Yeah.
So, in 2 and 3, because Dr. Kirk Connors isn't in the first one, he is mentioned, though. In Spider-Man 2 and 3, Dylan Baker from Happiness and Trick or Treat plays Dr. Kirk Connors.
Yep.
And I think he's one of the most underappreciated actors.
He's a really good actor.
He is such a good actor. If you haven't seen Happiness, he's amazingly sinister in that movie. And he's really good as the serial killer principal in Trick or Treat. Like, he's such a good actor. He's so good at playing menacing. And the fact that we are never going to see a Spider-Man movie where Dylan Baker gets to play the fucking Lizard breaks my fucking heart.
Yeah. I suspect they kind of do what they were going to do with him in Amazing Spider-Man.
And
that's very much diminishing returns.
Yeah, and that is very much diminishing returns. So it's like, it's a good thing, but it also really sucks, because I think that Dylan Baker would have owned the shit out of that role.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that will never see the light of day.
Yep.
And Dylan Baker will remain in obscurity until someone finally gives him that break he fucking deserves.
After Sam Raimi dropped out, all hope for Spider-Man 4 was dead.
Yeah.
Maybe they held out otherwise, but it was dead.
They basically announced the reboot like hours later, I heard.
Something like that, and they announced Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield and Mark Webb at that point?
Yeah, Mark Webb was directing it.
Oh, and Mark Webb. And we'll talk about that next week. That's a whole other debacle.
That's a whole other can of worms.
I'm kind of glad it ended where it did. Well, I mean, not in the sense that we got the movie that we wanted. I never wanted a Spider-Man 4. I don't want a Spider-Man 4. People who are clamoring for Tobey Maguire to come back, I don't understand.
At this point, yeah.
Yeah, like, I'm
sure
he's moved on with his fucking life.
Oh, yeah. I think everyone kind of has. Like, I think it would have been nice to see another one, especially if it, like, rectified Spider-Man 3. However... And there are other things I'm really sad about. Again, Dylan Baker not being able to play the Lizard in any future Spider-Man movie is a fucking shame. Because they really could have built up on that. But for better, yeah, I'm actually kind of happy they didn't bother with it.
Yeah, especially because, like, it didn't look like they were going to, like, radically change the people in charge. Like, it looked like it was going to be the same producers. Sam Raimi was directing, sure, but, like, he was in favor of a lot of the not great decisions in Spider-Man 3.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not, like, a guarantee that the movie would have
No, and it's not
it's
not a guarantee. It's more just me going, well, hopefully this would have been the case.
Right. I get that.
But, yeah, no, I think I'm completely with you. Like, for better or worse, I am happy that this never saw the light of day.
Yeah. I guess that's all our thoughts on the Raimi trilogy.
I guess so. This is going to be a long episode. Did you know that today is Ingmar Bergman's birthday?
What does that have to do with this?
It doesn't have anything to do with this. I'm just really sad that I could have been watching like fucking Persona or Cries and Whispers or something, but instead...
Happy birthday, Ingmar Bergman.
But instead today, I'm fucking watching Spider-Man 3 and talking about Spider-Man 3 and I want to fucking hang myself.
Any second that you spend talking about Spider-Man 3 is a second lost forever. Just keep imagining that. Also, Danny Elfman, I forgot to mention this. Danny Elfman was originally not going to come back for the third one.
Really?
Because he hates Sam Raimi.
Oh, really?
They had a falling out apparently in Spider-Man 2.
Oh shit, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so they hired a new guy, but then I guess Danny Elfman ended up coming back to like kind of co-compose.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, that was interesting. You guys can look it up if you're interested. I
really want to look that up because I'm kind of interested now.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, that's it, guys.
We're done.
We'll
be back next week with Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah. Hopefully Brandon will be back, but no guarantees.
Yeah, it's
again.
Just trust us when we say like it's warranted.
Yeah. No. He's not here for a really good reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Social media.
Oh, we keep forgetting that. I think we've just resigned ourselves to obscurity at this point.
Yeah.
You can find us at Twitter at Decay Sequel. Find us. We've got good posts. Our individual Twitter accounts are listed there. Find me. I got good retweets.
Find me. Sometimes I say it funny.
We're also on Facebook. You can find us there. Our YouTube channel is where this is going up, so I guess you're already here, in which case, hello. Look to your right, you'll see all the Nazi videos. Please don't click on them.
Yeah, please don't.
Yeah. You're just skewing the algorithm further against us, and also decent content.
Remember, don't use Amazon in the next couple days.
Don't use Amazon. I guess the walkout will be over by the time this comes out, but
yeah.
In lieu of that, storm Jeff Bezos' mansion and burn him at the stake. Support your local animal shelter.
Don't forget to hug a cat.
Give change to a homeless dude, because God knows they could just use a little light, even if that is drugs.
Even if they ask, got a light? Give him a lighter.
Give him a lighter.
Let him light that cigarette.
Yeah. Shake his hand. Come on, you fucking coward. Show some human empathy.
Have a beautiful evening, everyone.
Have a great time.
Yeah.
Don't watch Spider-Man 3. You deserve the best. Don't watch Spider-Man 3. Have a really good week.
Jerk off to some confessional porn.
What the fuck is confessional porn?